Hello, one and all. Welcome to video helping you out with Chapter 4, Lesson 8, one-step equations with integers, this time using multiplication and division. Pause if you need to take a look at your even answers from the previous assignment. Come on back when you are ready. And so here we go, ladies and gents. Think about where we've been, add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Now here is why we are doing that. We're going to solve one-step equations with integers before we eventually get onto more complex equations. So if you take a look off to the side, you'll notice where we've been, why those skills were both useful, and then eventually where we are heading. All right, go ahead and pause for a second, title your paper, come on back when you're ready. You know what, I think I might scratch number 49. I'm worried about the size of this assignment, so maybe we'll go to 48. Let's go. All right, first of all, you know that I have a deep distrust of integer man and any tricks or gimmicks. Please remember, why is a negative times a negative? Why is a negative divided by a negative a positive? It's all about opposites. So the opposite of a negative would be a positive. Meanwhile, the opposite of a positive makes a negative. Really, I need you guys to focus on opposites. Now, I went ahead and modeled example A here. Think about if you have the opposite of 12 m's and it's equal to negative 60. Well, notice here I have the opposite, or negative m, repeated 12 times. And then on the other side, I have 60. Now, you might be tempted to simply say, okay, I know what to do, Mr. Cowan. Let's just divide this into 12 parts. And then naturally, we would divide that into 12 parts as well. But as I go ahead, I'm going to rewrite it on the other side. I want you to think about what happens if you divide both sides by 12. Is that really what you want? So let me take negative 12m, or the opposite of 12m is divide by 12. Let me take negative 60, divide by 12. And of course, on this side, it appears that there are negative 5 in each group. But what does that leave us with over here? Sure, 12 and 12 cancel out. After all, 12 divided by 12 is 1. But notice what is remaining. And after all, who wants to know what the opposite of m is? We want to know what m is. So what's going to be pretty important is that when you're dividing into groups, you don't just divide by 12, you divide by the opposite of 12. Now look what would happen. The opposite of all those negative 12m's would be a positive m in each group. And naturally, I'm not going to sit here and do this, but the opposite of all those minuses would be pluses. Let's take a look over here. Negative 12 divided by negative 12, if I could cross off that negative as well, would be a single m, a real m, not the opposite of m. And of course, 60 split into 12 parts, negative 60 split into 12 parts would be negative 5, but then the opposite of all those negatives would be positive. If you don't believe it, you know what we're going to do. We're going to rewrite the equation, but we're going to substitute in a 5. And if I were to take 12 5s, no, the opposite of all those positive 5s, now we see a true statement. So be careful and ensure that you know what you're going for here as you try to solve these equations. Let me do another example on this page. Goal, let's find out what y is, but right now we have 9 y's, so let's split it up into 9 groups. Of course, be fair to the other one. 9 divided by 9 is 1. Yes, you don't need to write that one. 108 divided by 9 is 12, or is it? We go ahead, rewrite the equation, but we think we know what that unknown variable is. We think it's known. So we go ahead and multiply 9 times 12, and we see it's a true statement. Pause if you need, rewind back to that part about the drawing if you need. Let's get on to this one. I want you to imagine what this looks like. We don't have a full m, we have like a 1/7 of an m, and it equals negative 5. Okay, but I want to know what m is, not what a seventh, a part of m is. So what are we going to do? Well, if that part is -5, then so is this part, and so is this part, and so is this part. And naturally, if we want the full size, we're going to need 7/7, and of course 7/7 will make the whole. But we're also going to need 7 -5s, because each of those parts is -5. And of course 7 -5s is -35. Don't believe it? Rewrite the equation. Substitute in what you now believe to be the solution, and let's prove it. -35 split into 7 parts is still underwater, is still in debt, and that appears to be a true statement. So once again, you'll notice that 7/7, 7 parts make the whole, and naturally 7 -5s would give us -35. That's why we multiply both sides by 7 to find out what the entire part is. Okay, so goal, C equals, but we have the C split into 14 parts and then the opposite. Okay, so that means we're going to need 14 parts. No. We're going to need 14 parts and then to take the opposite of it. Because 14/14 makes one whole, and the opposite of a negative leaves us with a positive, or I should just say a regular C, not the opposite of C. We want to know what C is. Meanwhile, 8/14, -8/14, 8 -14s, you might be tempted to write -112, but the opposite of all those negatives is positive. Now let's go ahead and find out. We're going to rewrite our equation, substitute in what we believe to be the truth. Go off to the side if you need. 8 times 4, 32, carry the 3. 8 times 1 plus 3, 11. That is perfect. Oh, the opposite of that positive would be negative, and lo and behold, it's a true statement. So get rid of parts by multiplying. Get rid of division. The inverse of division is to multiply. If you need, actually, I would recommend you pause, try to work these out on your own, and come back when you're ready. -6n equals -138. Goal, n equals, let's get rid of that -6 by dividing into 6 parts. No. Then taking the opposite. So let's divide both sides by the opposite of 6. Now in this case, -6 divided by -6 gives us a positive 1n. And 138 divided by 6, let's see, 2 with a little 1 left over. I'm guessing 23. Naturally, the opposite of a negative is a positive, but let's go ahead and find out. Rewriting the equation, substitute in 23. 6 3s is 18, carry the 1. 6 2s is 12, plus 1 is 13. The opposite of all those positives being negative. And we see a true statement once again. Anybody can come up with an answer, but a solution is a number or numbers that makes a statement true. Meanwhile, we go over here. We don't want to know what part of H is. We want to know what H is. So let's get rid of that part by saying, all right, let's take 12 of those parts. Wait a second, Mr. Callan. If you do that, the 12 would cross off, but then we would end up with the opposite of H. And who really cares what the opposite of H is? So let's go ahead and change that up. Instead of multiplying by 12, we're going to multiply by the opposite of 12. When we do that, 12/12 makes a whole. The opposite of a negative is not the opposite anymore. Meanwhile, 12/6 is 72, and the opposite of that positive is a negative. Remember, it doesn't matter who's bigger or smaller with multiplication and division. Instead of going up 6 repeatedly, we're now going down 6 repeatedly. Let's check it. Substituting in what we know. -72 split up into 12 parts would be -6, but the opposite of that negative is a positive. Is 6 the same as +6? You bet. That is a true statement. That's what I have, folks. For now, I've scratched off 49 to try to save you some time. Good luck. Do well. Let me know if I can help you. See ya.